all over the place.
You are not good at it like I am.
I'm not patient enough when I pour. Thank you. All right. So today we're going to be talking about the recent New York City attack where a guy wrapped a belt around a female. I think it was in the Bronx. And she is walking down a sidewalk. This guy, who apparently is a known predator in the neighborhood. Many people have had issues with this guy. I've had run-ins with this guy. Hang on, let me make sure my volume's up. Many people have had issues with this guy, run-ins with this guy. He approaches her. According to her, he propositions her. She says no. And as she walks away, he takes a belt and I guess he loops it, puts it right over her head and pulls it taut, takes her down to the ground, and then promptly drags her behind a vehicle and proceeds to assault her, right? SA. They found the guy, was it yesterday or day before maybe? Within the last 48 hours, they found the guy. They made the arrest. One of the things that I found really interesting about this situation is that there was really clear surveillance footage. I don't know if there was a restaurant or a business or what the situation was, but the
building they were by. It was a pretty long building when they filmed, like pretty big, and
like really good video quality of what happened. A couple of things that really stuck out was that this happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't want to ever tell grown people or adults like when you can or you can't be out, live your life, do your thing. But nothing positive generally happens after midnight, especially in New York City. And I used to spend time in New York City. I have family that lives in New York City. I was never in the Bronx. I was in Manhattan. A little bit different demographic in Manhattan. Not that you couldn't run into problems at 3 in the morning. And I had some nights where I was out pretty, I would say late, but more like early. But yeah, I think that Manhattan's probably a different environment than the Bronx.
Yeah.
So what do you do in that situation? Another thing, one more thing before we go any further. I was really, I don't want to say shocked, but I was surprised. And I was just telling my wife, who's off camera here, people fight, flight, or freeze. And you legitimately see this woman freeze. He puts the noose basically around her neck as she's walking away. And the second that he pulls her, she just kind of goes limp and catatonic. And as he's dragging her, he drags her 3 to 5 feet off camera in between these cars. And she's pretty much just catatonic. She tells a reporter that he strangled her unconscious. And that she didn't wake up until 15 or 20 minutes later after the incident, which, I'm apt to believe her. But there was a clear moment where she just went into this just catatonic state, which is very terrifying to think that you can be in a situation where that could happen. Yeah. It's like when you watch a gazelle that's getting chased by a lion, and finally, like, the gazelle just knows, like, I'm not getting away. And it just, they say your body has like this dopamine release that just allows you to just relax and just go somewhere else. Morgan and I have a movie that we both really love, and it's called Incident in a Ghostland. The entirety of the movie is based around the fact that there's these two sisters who have been kidnapped in this horrible situation. I don't want to give the movie away, so spoiler alert, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One of the sisters continually goes into this catatonic state where she just goes somewhere else. And that was
period. Don't say anymore.
I'm just saying that, yeah. But that was the first time where I've literally seen someone do that. Like, you watch movies and you're like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's a cool angle.
Time it was depicted, and it was the first time I feel, and I know it's a movie, right? It's Hollywood, but that was the first movie I'd seen, I think, with what you're saying, where it was depicted.
Yeah.
Because one girl fought and one girl didn't, and you never see the girl who, and I don't want to say didn't, but she went into that catatonic state. That was the first time that's ever been depicted.
My point is, like, that's the first time where I've literally seen someone in a self-defense situation do that.
In real life. Yeah, no, same.
So, what are your thoughts on that? Being a woman, living in an area where we have a lot of crazy people in our neighborhood. We have crazy people in the peripheral. Like, what do you think about that when you see that?
Well, it's fucking horrible, and we don't know the situation in which she was out at 3:00. It is really easy for me to be like, I'm not going to be out. It's easy for me to say, and I have, like, that I run my life a certain way, right? I try not to go out places after dark unless I'm just going from car to home, or something. But we don't know why she was, and not everyone can do that or has the luxury because maybe a job or something like that, but, and that's not going to stop something from happening to me. It's just trying to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Trying to keep myself out of potentially vulnerable situations if I can. And, I mean, the whole thing is absolutely horrible. Ugh.
Do you think that people have a choice in terms of, because, and this is why I wanted to make this video, do you think that she had a choice to be able to fight through that catatonic reaction, or is that something that you just never know until you're put in that situation?
I feel like you just never know until you're put in that situation.
Because that's pretty scary to think that, like, you could literally be prepared. Like, what if she had a firearm? What if she had a knife? What if she had, like, made the decision that, hey, I'm going to protect myself at all costs? But if that's the physiological reaction that you have in that situation, you can't turn that off.
Right. It's it's the lady that I told you about that I met last year, who is a concealed carry,
what was that story? Tell that story.
She was a concealed carry holder. She was probably my mom's age, right? Okay. So I would say definitely mid-50s to 60, and she had been a concealed carry holder her entire life. And she was attacked, I think it was in Northeast Portland, but don't quote me, but she was attacked in Portland. And her fight, flight, or she didn't know at the time, but her reaction was freeze. It wasn't fight or flight. And ultimately, with them attacking her and trying to SA her, they found her firearm on her hip, and then they shot her with it.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, so she was, hers was in a time. I need to interview
this chick. Do you have her number? I need to interview.
I don't remember if she bought from me. I wouldn't even begin. No. I'll just say no. If I ever met her again, I'll talk about it, but talk to her about it. But she was like, in the time pre-attack, she was like, I had it for myself, for my kids. Like, it was something that our family, did. And then since then, she goes, I have since just stopped carrying because clearly in a situation that you think about all the time, she was like, it ended up being something that didn't help me in the least. And then they ended up using it against me.
Yeah.
And, and you, not me or anyone, you can't tell her, oh no, like, oh gosh, you should still carry. Like, it's, her situation that happened. And it's just one of those where you go, if that is her outcome is that. But, I don't think anyone can prepare to kind of go back to your original question on, like, what we can talk about till we're blue in the face, what we think we would do in that situation. And then with hearing situations like this where it's the freeze, I just, hope to God that freeze is not my response. And, the situation when you watch the news clip of this woman in New York, he had already approached her and things like that. So I think there's a different, is it a demographic or attitude of, if someone approaches me and says something, her head wasn't on a swivel just in the video clips that they're showing. And I feel like I would like to think I would be put on high alert.
Well, let me interject something here. So, you can't assume how you would respond in situations, right? Which is why it's so important for you to put yourself in positions where you're testing yourself a little bit, right? When I was first starting working in private security, and I was like, man, I'm a big guy. I feel comfortable and confident that I can handle myself, but seeing what was happening during the protest, and then at the time when I was working at the store and we had lost the loss prevention officers and I was pretty much running security by myself, I'm like, man, like, I don't know what's going to happen if I get into a situation, because I had dealt with so many different types of people. I had dealt with small, young, thin, frail drug addicts. And then I had like 6'4", 6'5", jacked psychopaths coming in and tearing the store up like the Hulk. And it's like you look at yourself and you go, man, like not only do I have to worry about protecting myself, protecting other people, but then the repercussions that come from that, I don't know what I'm going to do. So what did I do in that situation? I start going to jiu-jitsu classes. I start traveling and going to more advanced training classes where I'm having to physically fight different people of different sizes, of different ability levels. You have to test yourself, right? I would say that the most important thing that people miss when it comes to self-protection is they're not being honest with themselves about the decision that has to be made, right? It's a long road to get most people to accept the fact that they have to protect themselves. It was a very long road for you to get you to carry a firearm. But that time that it took to get you from I don't want to carry a firearm to I'm going to carry a firearm every day, it's going to be equally, if not longer, for you to get to a point where you're like, now that I have the firearm, I need to train with the firearm. And then there's an equally or longer distance from there from now that I have the firearm and I'm training on how to use the firearm, I need to put myself in situations where I'm working with the firearm, in terms of wrestling or jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that you have to do about it. Most people aren't going to do that. They go, that's too much work. I ain't doing that. Okay, well then you end up in situations where somebody's wrapping a belt around your fucking neck and dragging you behind a car. And that kind of stuff is only going to happen more because we're having an influx of people that are coming into this country that are from areas where that type of crime, that level of crime, that level of violence is absolutely, it's normalized. And I'm not saying that to be like xenophobic or racist or anything, but we have an influx of cartel type environmental people that are coming over here.
Yeah.
And going to these areas.
Yeah.
It's a change in the dynamic. What would it take for you? And when I say that, I don't mean any of that to be rude. Like your journey is your journey.
Yeah.
But it was a long time to get you to carry a firearm. What would it take for you to say, all right, what's the next level of evolution in self-protection? Or do you never see yourself like taking any steps to further what you're doing? Not to put you on the spot, but
well, I don't even know I feel like the next step would be going all the time to the gun range. Right? Using it.
More than what you do now, yeah.
Practicing with it. So for me, it's like, sure I could. I think sometimes when you go, I'm like, I guess I could go with him, and then I don't. And then there's times that I'm like, you could ask me once a week, like, hey, do you want to go every Tuesday? And I would just know, okay, every Tuesday we go. And like, I feel like I would do it then if you asked me, but it's not your responsibility. And I think that's why when it comes down to whenever you're like, hey, I'm going to go to the range. Hey, I'm going to go blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, okay. And then I don't say anything about going.
It's just not something that's important to you.
I don't want to say, yeah, I mean, I guess if it needs to be like so black and white like that, yeah. But I kind of view it the same, like I don't like spur of the moment, bruh. I don't like being out in the shop in the middle of working on something, or even sitting here and then you're like, hey, I'm going, and you're getting dressed right now because you're getting ready to leave in 5 minutes. I'm not that kind of person who's like, yep, I want to go. Again, which is why if I knew every Tuesday or Thursday or Sunday or whatever day that like this is the day that you're going every week, my personality more is apt to be like, I'll go that day with you every week because I know that that's the day that's going to happen. But you're a pretty fly by the seat of your pants. I can't even I mean that like when I ask you, what do you have planned tomorrow? And you're like, babe, God,
I just don't want to get wrong because I don't want to give you my schedule. Don't mean I'm fly by the seat of my pants. I know what the fuck I'm doing. I just don't want to tell you my schedule all the time. let's get back on top my topic, okay? So
I just don't want to tell you what I'm doing.
here's the thing, okay? At the end of the day, and as much as this frustrates me, I cannot get frustrated about it. I can't, because it's just not, nothing is going to change. It's not going to change with you, and it's not going to change with the majority of women in this country. You try to have this conversation about the dangers that are out there, this conversation about the problems that you are potentially going to run into on the street, and most people just don't give a shit. So I am trying very hard for the remainder of 2024 going into 2025 to try and detach myself from caring about people's decisions. I hate seeing someone get a noose wrapped around their neck and dragged behind a car to be raped. I hate seeing that, especially knowing that there's small things that you could do to keep yourself from falling victim to that. The only way that you're going to fight that catatonic response is to slowly introduce yourself to more violence. You have to introduce yourself to it. A lot of times people, women specifically, will say, I don't want to have this conversation. If I were to talk about this with, say, 10 random people from the store that I work at, females, most of them would say, I don't want to talk about this. So the fact that they aren't even willing to have this conversation already puts them behind the 8 ball, right? If it comes to firearms and needing a firearm, trying to explain to women that the only way to equalize force with the average man is to have a firearm. It's not about you having a knife. It's not about you having access to pepper spray. Your only real defense against the average man is a firearm. That's the only force multiplier. But a large majority of women will say, I don't like firearms. A large majority of women would say, I don't want to hurt someone. So not wanting to hurt someone, not wanting to have access to a firearm, not wanting to talk about violence, you are making yourself a perpetual victim, potentially. You can play the numbers. You can play the lottery and hope that maybe just that never happens to you. But we're seeing that it's increasing more and more, right? So I'm going to give 3 small tips for anyone that's watching this, anyone that's listening, anyone that cares, okay? Number 1 is you have to recognize violence. And we, a lot of times in these conversations, aren't even talking about the violence that most women are introduced to, which is in their home. It's the dad, it's the husband, it's the boyfriend, it's the uncle, right? Just understand that violence is a potential. It's a potential that you're going to run up against it, right? Number 2 is accept whether or not you are going to allow yourself to be a victim. You have zero, you, me, anybody watching this, we have zero decision in the aspect of whether or not we are victimized. I want you to hear that again. We have zero of a role to play in whether or not we are victimized. To be victimized means that someone is doing something to you. I don't have a choice in that. You don't have a choice in that. We all have a choice on whether or not we're going to be a victim. You can do something to me. I can also respond, right? That's the only choice that you get. I have said this quote so many times. One of the things that really made me love that movie Lawless is that scene with Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf where they're in the restaurant. And Shia has gotten his ass kicked. He's gotten the shit kicked out of him.
Right.
And his brothers, Tom Hardy, what's the other guy's name?
Jason Clark.
Tom Hardy and Jason Clark, like, they're known in the neighborhood for being those motherfuckers. Like, they fuck people up. And so Shia is in the restaurant and he's waiting for his brothers to come in. He doesn't say anything, but they can see that he's beat up and he's wanting them to see that he's gotten beat up. And Tom Hardy comes over and he's like, what are you going to do about this? And Shia's like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you thought I was going to get involved in this?
Right.
You thought I was going to go fight your battles for you? No, what are you going to do about this? And he says, for the remainder of your life, you will never allow this to happen to you again. As long as you are my brother, you will never allow somebody to do this to you. And Shia takes that as, you have to beat people up. And he says to him, I'm not like you. I'm not like him. I'm not big. I'm not tough. And Tom is like, no. You got this all wrong. You know, it's not about being the strongest or the toughest. It's about the decision that you make on how far you are willing to go to make your point. He wasn't expecting Shia LaBeouf to be able to go fight for fight, blow for blow, and be able to beat this guy's ass.
Right.
What he was saying was, what you're not going to do is get your ass kicked and come cower in this restaurant. What are you going to do? So for women who find themselves potentially in this situation, for anybody who finds themselves in this situation, what are you willing to do? And you have to make that decision well before the time comes. I have told all my kids, do not ever tell me that someone has put their hands on you, because I've already made the decision on what I'm going to do if that's the case. Don't ever come for my family and harm them. I don't care what position you hold. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what your job is. All these things that you guys see on television where people befall victim to certain organizations, don't do that to my family, because I've already made the decision on how I'm going to respond. That is not a question for me. And if you're in a situation where you're living in this environment right now as a woman, you have to make a decision. Now, everybody is not going to want to carry a firearm. Everybody's not going to want to carry a knife. If you live in a place like New York City, you might not be able to carry a firearm. You might not be able to carry a knife. So what can you do in that situation? I want to show you guys two things. This is an everyday carabiner, right? I think this carabiner was like $10 to $15. And it's unlike a lot of carabiners because this brand, and it's called Force, Force. But you can find these. This brand, it's very, very thick. Like a lot of times carabiners have like really loose or cheap type mechanisms. This one is very thick and it's very dense. Listen. Okay? Something like this is used to hold your keys. Something like this is used to, secure your backpack or your lanyard. I mean, just think like what potentially could something like this do for you in a situation where you're walking the streets of your friendly neighborhood and you have to go somewhere, right? And it doesn't take training to be able to utilize something like this as a force multiplier. Not here to tell you that you should ever punch anybody with these, right? But just imagine potentially what something like this might be able to accomplish in a situation where you have to get somebody off of you. There's a great channel on YouTube where the guy that runs that channel, he's a former CIA agent. He says he is. I'm taking him at his word. I don't think you should say that if you're not. But he always talks about in self-defense with the CIA, they don't train people to fight. He was like, they don't train the CIA, I don't know if you call them operatives or officers or agents or whatever. They don't train them to necessarily fight. They train them to break contact. Mm-hmm. What they're being taught is if you were to potentially, hypothetically, take something like a carabiner and slip it onto your hand and aggressively hit someone over the bridge of the nose or in between the eyes or on the top of the head, it's enough of a force multiplier in that moment to give you an opportunity to get out of that situation. It's not about you standing there and going toe-to-toe with somebody in a fight. So for a smaller woman, for a woman who finds herself in that situation, being able to reach into your pocket, slip this on your hand, and be able to hit someone, potentially, hypothetically, that's a way that you could have something on you that's not a knife, that's not a firearm, that could help you in that situation.
I feel like I need to interject here.
Go ahead.
It's not enough though you need to have it in your hand.
Right.
I don't leave the times that I've been out and I've gone to the grocery store, and you know how the grocery stores are.
Yeah.
Right? I do not, before I even exit the car when I've pulled into park, I already have my firearm as accessible as I can make it. Mm-hmm. So, meaning, and when I'm done checking out, I literally make sure my shit is squared away. If you ever saw me on camera, I'm sure I look like a weirdo because I stop for a minute and make sure my shit is squared away. And then I check my bag, I check my hand placement, and my hand is already, if not on, but like breached the pocket in where I carry, and I walk to my car with my hand that only needs to go another 2 inches to grip.
You're talking about staging,
But it's the same with that. If you're women walking at night and they have something like that,
right.
it's not enough to have your keys on it.
Let me get to that.
Already needs to be on their hand.
So the first issue that we're trying to cover here is that, number one, the decision has to be made that you're not going to be a victim. Number two, if you're not willing to utilize the best tool, which is going to be a firearm, if you're not going to utilize that,
right,
or you can't based on where you live, what can you carry, right? So what I'm offering now are two alternatives, right?
Okay.
Staging is completely different, and we'll get to that here in a second. The second tool that you can have in a non-permissive environment is called a tactical pin. This is a tactical pin. Do you see that? It's just a pin. Take this off right here, right? See? It's a pin. And this pin actually writes. This is made of forged steel, and it has a glass breaker right here on the other side of this pin, okay? But that glass breaker is also very good for piercing skin and cracking skulls, hypothetically, okay? And this is one of those things that you can have in your pocket, you can have in your bag, you can have in your purse, you can have on your person, and not have to worry about, hypothetically, potentially, check your local listings, breaking any sort of laws in terms of having a weapon on you. There are certain places that you will go that you can't take a pocket knife. Certain places that you go that you can't take a firearm. I don't agree with that, but there are places. So I personally don't want to be in a situation where I'm not armed, right? Or protected would be a better thing to say, hypothetically. Not saying that I do this, but just for the sake of the video. Something like this, along with the decision that I've already made that I'm not going to be a victim and that I'm going to respond no matter what. Great options as opposed to being completely barehanded and ass out in a situation. Okay? How do you utilize this? The same way you would anything else that's used for puncturing, slashing, or stabbing. Okay? But it's just a pin. These you can purchase on Amazon for about $9 or $10. One of the other great things about something like this, a $10 carabiner, if you get into a situation, you're going through an area that has a metal detector, you're going through an area that has a pat down, and people are tripping, they're giving you a hard time, hey, you know what? Keep the fucking pin. I don't care. It's a pin. You're never saying that this is something that you're using to do something to someone. It's just a pin. It's just a carabiner. At the end of the day, if they confiscate these, they tell me I can't come into the restaurant, I can't come into the nightclub, I can't come into whatever, and they want to take these and throw them away, no skin off my back. I'll order it on Amazon. I'll have 6 more tomorrow, right? As opposed to having a $75 knife and now having to explain why you have a knife and having that knife confiscated, right? These are also things that, for my wife, you can stage. I was getting there. If you're going jogging, this is a great thing that you can put right on your hand. I'm one of those people that when I jog, I'm a horrible runner. But when I jog, my hands are completely tight. Most people tell you when you're jogging, loosen up your hands, loosen up your hands. I can't breathe, motherfucker. You know what I mean? So I'm fighting off the heart attack.
You're holding your soul through your hands.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a great thing. Have this on your hand. So when that dog comes up and runs at you, you can defend yourself. When that crackhead pops up from behind that bush, you can defend yourself. You could also run carrying your tack pin. If you're walking from your car to your apartment, you're walking from, I'm going to show my New York steez here, the bodega to your flat, you can carry this. You can have these on. And you can protect yourself. You wait for your moment to strike and you do it. Every animal in nature protects themselves with a stinger, with claws, with something. And you have to just first make that decision that you're not willing to be a victim and then decide what is the best option. And guys, look, these are everyday options. You can come up with your own stuff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what kind of stuff you can use, but you can use anything. But the most important thing is you have to make that decision. And that, to me, I think is the hardest thing for most women, is just to cross that bridge. Okay, I understand I can be victimized. I'm not willing to be a victim. What am I going to do? And then you have to make that decision.
Yeah, I think though, as a whole, my experience, people don't talk about staging enough. These gizmos and gadgets are really great, and they're great options, and I think it's awesome that you talk about it. That, I feel like, is something, just in my experience in my 35 years of life, is the thing that's talked about the most. There are the not like Tupperware, but the Tupperware version of the safety stuff for women. I can't remember what they're called, right? And people host those parties and have all
Like the little cat rings and
but
shit.
yeah, but all
and-
the things that have been in the last decade, especially, talked about for women on self-protection. Staging is something that, the only thing staging that I've ever heard as a societal whole is put your keys between your fingers. That's like universal. Women do that or know that, but with other things besides keys, I don't think staging is talked about enough. I don't know how many husbands are talking about these things with their wives
Yeah.
and boyfriends and girlfriends and kids to their mothers. That, like, all of those things, I don't think staging is talked about enough, and how important it is, as much as it's talked about the little things that,
Well, when it comes to staging, you have to remember, like, you don't want items that are going to shift. The whole keys in between the fingers thing is, it's a good idea in theory, but the keys themselves are not going to stay in that location. They're not going to stay oriented. If you were to strike someone with that, number one, those keys are going to shift. Number two, if there's any sort of penetration or anything like that, that's going to cause a shift in the orientation of the keys. And you got to think about what it's like, what you're holding on the other side of those keys, right?
I know.
Something like this, just clenching your fist, it's not going anywhere.
I agree.
Especially, hang on, if you're using a hammer fist. Not using a punch, but using a hammer fist, right? When you're holding something that is a puncture, it doesn't take like this long Michael Myers type motion, like just quickly hitting soft areas, the eyes, the neck, growing, things like that. You can get a great response. But yeah, that is important to talk about, but I think that most people can't get past just the decision aspect of it, you know. But you're right. You are very right in what you're saying, that the staging of it has to be there. The longer it takes for you to get from point A to point B meaning getting to your actual
the safe
item that
place,
you're
or
going, no,
yeah.
using the item.
Oh yeah.
The longer it takes for you to get to that item, the less likely you're going to have an opportunity to use it. So
Yeah.
you're 100% right.
Yeah. I also don't think fingers are used enough in eyeballs. I know it's not necessarily relevant with an attack from behind in that way, but we see things on TV all the time, or we watch, just all kinds of things. And I say that's what I teach my nieces, who are much smaller than me and or much younger, is don't forget your middle finger. Don't scratch. You literally dig their eyeball out of their brain. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that is talked about enough.
Okay. I don't want to go down the weeds and cut into what you're saying, okay? But let's stay focused on what we're talking about here, which is force multipliers. Okay. Because I think that a lot of times, and now we're going off of an offshoot here, force multipliers have to be involved. Strictly female on male self-defense is highly unlikely without a force multiplier. If you don't have something that is going to accentuate the amount of pain that a person is feeling, you're going to be in a bad situation. Trying to get a 14-year-old to be able to gouge a grown man's eyes out is not as easy as you think, because a man doesn't want to have his eyes gouged out. So that's not something that is really practical. What is more practical is to have something that is going to multiply that pain. So I don't want to go down the road of debating something like that. We don't want to get into the weeds on like mythical shit that you see in movies. We're talking about real world things that are taught to people who work and live in these permissive environments of violence. So when a CIA officer is saying, this is what we're teaching people who are going to Russia, who are going to Afghanistan, and they're going to be there for a week, and they have to be able to protect themselves and get out of a situation, they're not teaching them to gouge their eyes out. They're teaching them to poke them with something that is going to multiply that pain. So I want to stay on that track, okay?
Yeah.
Fuck. All Ricky says, I teach my wife to poke your finger deep into his eyes. Yeah, see? Now you just devalidated everything that I said.
No. Yeah. You don't want to go down this path, so I won't say anything.
Ridge says, what helps you get into the mindset that I'm not going to be a victim and that I'm coming home tonight? I don't know if he's asking me if that's a question. What
read
helps
it
you?
as a question.
What helps you get into the mindset that I'm not going to be a victim and that I'm coming home tonight? What helps me is that I don't want to die. I have shit that I want to live for. You know? You have to understand that the people who are willing to do harm to you, the people who are willing to take your shit, the people that are willing to rape, the people that are willing to steal, they've already made that decision. And they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They're going to do what they want to do. So I don't have any sympathy for what happens to them. I have zero sympathy. You made that decision. Everybody gets a vote. And you woke up today or at some point in your life and you voted that you didn't give a fuck about my life or what my family feels or what my family thinks or anything. So I'm going to vote as well. And my vote is you could have picked anybody, anywhere, at any time, and you brought your happy ass over here to fuck with me. And you're going to pay. Now, you might leave me where I stand. You might end me right where I am. But you are going to fucking feel that you were here. And you're going to know that you came up against me. That is my mentality. And that's the mentality that everyone should have. Your wife, your kids, everyone.
I think it's a nuanced answer. Not your answer is very black and white. I think one can have the mentality of it's you or it's me, and also still be compassionate and empathetic as a societal whole, right? You don't wake up every day and go, fuck everyone else in the world and I'm doing me today. It's only in the times that it matters. You know, when those times come that it matters between you or me, I'm picking me all day long, right?
But it's not nuanced because we have three animals in this house, and the majority, for the most part, our three animals are pretty docile.
For sure.
I'm looking at our oldest cat, who's like sleeping on the table over there. She doesn't give a fuck, man. She doesn't bother anybody. Feed her twice a day. Give her some pets. Give her some water. Leave her alone.
Yeah.
If I go over there right now and I grab her and she doesn't want to be grabbed and I hold her, she's going to give me the let me go. And then she's going to give me the let me go. And then she's going to fucking start scratching and biting. It's not nuanced. She has the right to her own autonomy and to not be bothered.
Yeah.
And we all do. And I don't know why we as humans have made this such a difficult conversation. It ain't that deep. It ain't that deep. When it comes to your daughters, when it comes to your wives, when it comes to the women in your family, they have been trained and misled that they owe some motherfucker a goddamn explanation.
100%.
That they owe somebody an explanation. Hey, come here, baby. Hey, you hear me talking to you? Hey, and now the guy's walking up on them. Who the fuck do you think you are? Now, you might have it in your mind that you're going to put a fucking belt around my neck and drag me behind this car. So be it. Guess what else you're getting? A fight. Fight me.
But
you want to kill me, then kill me. Right.
Teach women that.
That's what I'm saying. So there's a reason that society doesn't teach it, because society likes victims. Society makes money off of victims. Society is able to gain power off of victims. Whether it's female victims, whether it's male victims. There's a reason why they're trying to take everybody's guns. While at the same time, shaming you for not supporting a war all the way across the fucking world. You're in the wrong because you don't want your tax dollars sent all the way across the world to give other people bombs and other people guns and other people weapons. Our government is constantly telling us how we do not need to have access to assault weapons, while simultaneously giving AR-15s and AK-47s to people in the fucking Ukraine. Not to soldiers, to everyday citizens. That doesn't strike you as
Get
odd?
back on track.
No, I'm just saying, that doesn't strike you as odd? That doesn't strike you as odd, right? So you have to make the decision. It's up to you. When they say that you have individual freedom in this country, that is literally the only freedom that you have in this country, is to make the decision. You might be oppressed. You might be in a situation where you're ultimately put down. Okay, are you going out on your back or are you going out on your shield? And that is what Tom Hardy was telling Shia in that movie. You go out on your fucking shield. And you've got to start telling your family that that is the only way that it happens. I can't be everywhere. I can't protect you. I can't keep a fucking crazed serial killer from throwing you in the car. But if he puts you in that car, I want every ounce of DNA that you can get off this motherfucker before you go.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
And it ain't that deep.
I think it's circling back to people don't teach, in general, people
When a
don't
work becomes a shoot interview. That's what they call it. In pro wrestling, they call that a shoot interview when somebody starts talking
people don't
real
teach
shit.
women. I was 27 before you told me the situation at the bar, and we had a big conversation after we went out one night. I was 27 before someone told me you don't owe a man anything. And we had a whole big conversation about when a guy approaches you, and I said what every woman does, you know, I don't necessarily want to be rude. We have to navigate how we speak, what our demeanor is, how we speak, because just literally being like, fuck off, it is cause enough to make a man snap and do something to hurt us, right? And I was 27 before you said, no, you have every right. Now, I'll say this, especially being out with you, right? You're like, you have every right to say, back up, you need to get out of my personal space. And that it is okay to not entertain even a few minutes of some guy's time that you don't know, that you don't want to entertain. And I think that isn't talked about enough, as well as what should follow, right? Like how the conversation should go, how we should be acting. And because we just live in a world you see just too many times, and you live in a world too many times where, sorry guys, but men do not handle rejection for fucking shit.
I agree. I see it.
And there's time and place for everything. You always made fun of me for going to the gas station in the hood, right? And getting gas, but there's time and place when I'm by myself doing that, even in the middle of the day, and someone's like, ooh, hey baby girl, why don't you take me for a ride in there? And I'd be like, I already got a side seat passenger, and keep it pushing. You know, that's not the time and place that I'm going to be like, fuck off.
Well,
but
look, hang on. I think that the education comes from understanding where the volume is. As a man who can protect myself, who carries a firearm and many other items on me every single day, who's ready to stand on it, I don't answer men with fuck off. Like, there's a level of understanding of time, place, and manner. Right?
No, thank you.
So I understand that, but from a woman's standpoint, like, and I'm not telling you how to go about carrying yourself, but if you're walking down the street and someone says something to you, there doesn't have to be any interaction in that moment anyway. You keep it moving, or you step off to the other side of the street. The person says something else, and you have to interject or interact with this person. You don't have to then say, fuck off. The next thing you say might be like, leave me alone, or I'm not interested. Now, the third time, maybe that's where the fuck off comes in, right? I'm not saying that you should automatically have this confrontational attitude. You know what I mean?
I know that. No, trust me, I know that. Saying no thank you and saying fuck off, I bet if we polled women in general, we would garner those two things with the same response. That is the societal conditioning. Me saying no thank you and ignoring someone. I'll say in a bar setting, right, where I'm not walking down the street. I'm somewhere where I'm fairly stagnant out. Me saying no thank you and me saying fuck off, in my head, those two things, in my experience, can garner the same negative outcome, the same dangerous outcome. So fuck off may have been it is aggressive, but saying no thank you and ignoring that person, or ignoring them because you're walking down the street. I've had, many people say things to women all the time, right? And just ignoring them is enough.
Yeah, to a certain demographic of dusty ass dudes, no matter what, you could say hi and they would fucking freak out.
Ted Bundy wasn't a dusty ass dude, right? I mean, come on, bro. It's not just dusty ass.
No, I'm
dudes.
saying that I agree with you that you can say anything in a certain demographic of people or nothing, and they're gonna freak out. Like, that's my point in saying that you can't control it. It doesn't matter what you wear as a woman. It doesn't matter what you say, what you do, how you carry yourself. There are certain men out there that are just going to be on some bullshit. So in that regard, understanding that, what can you do? You have to make the decision to not be the victim. Okay, how are you going to do that? Firearm, non-permissive environment items, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Because you're not changing the guys. And there ain't a bunch of bears available for y'all to date. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to fucking be ready to fight.
Yeah, I agree. I hope I'm never in a situation to find out. And when we talk about these things, I also tell you, I hope if I ever find myself that, like, it's me or you, bro, and you might kill me, but I'm doing everything that I can. Like, I'm gonna make you work for this kill.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna make you work for this kill.
Favorite civilian EDC pepper spray, either Palm or Saber.
We need to talk about something that happened in Portland the other day too. I think it would be good.
Somebody says, is she white? Yes. I only fuck with white girls. I thought y'all knew that. If it ain't snowing, I ain't going.
Oh shit.
What were you gonna say, real quick, before we got here?
Did you see the video posted the other day on the Portland page of the lady with the knife and the guy in the truck?
I don't know why he got out of the truck. You're in a truck. Now, she did stab his truck. So, like, if you want to get some, I think a lot of times when people, damage or fuck with somebody's car, people are like, I'm about to get some reparations out that ass. But that puts you in a situation where if he gets out of the car and because he got out of the car and he pepper sprayed her.
Before he got out of the car, he got out, he got out and pepper sprayed her. And then he got back in and drove the 50 feet, pulled over and got out because she had stabbed his car after he pepper sprayed her. And then when he got out and she come running up on him, they had that altercation.
Which is, hey, somebody just asked me about pepper spray. Just so you're aware, we're talking about a situation where a Portland zombie, which we have zombies everywhere. This dude's just driving down the street. He's got a dash camera, and a fucking zombie comes out of nowhere with a knife.
In the middle of the
street. And
she's
in the middle of the street, and she's like, ah! And he, like, tries to drive around her, and she's, like, getting in front of his car. So he gets out, he pepper sprays the chick, and then drives down the street. Why did he stop the second time?
Because
she stabbed it as he was...
No. So, yeah, she stopped and was threatening him right in front of his grill. She managed to move enough for him to drive around. And then he got out and pepper sprayed her because, whatever, the residual from the pepper spray, it was a cloud, right? It wasn't a gel or anything like that. It was a cloud. He got residual once he jumped back in the truck
so
from
he had
pepper
to pull
sprayer.
over.
So he pulled up and pulled over. And she's high off a fucking, hot air balloon over there. And she comes after him because that shit didn't do shit to her.
A lot of times, people, that's...
And then she said, "You want to see your kids?" And she's threatening him.
This is what I try to get across to people. I pepper spray people. I don't want to say a lot, but I have used pepper spray enough to know that it's 50-50. It's 50-50. I have pepper sprayed people and they've had an immediate reaction. And I have pepper sprayed people and they have looked at me like I just poured barbecue sauce on them. I've told that story where I had the exact same, like, the M4 can of pepper spray. It's like a fucking small fire. It's over there. Yeah. Small fire extinguisher. And this dude had this big ass knife, and I took that thing and I went. And he goes, I really wish you hadn't done that. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Right?
It's not funny, but it is.
Yeah. And there's video of that, right? I'm like, oh my God. Like, pepper spray doesn't work on people that are crazy or high or like.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse. Let me just say this. When you're working in a security capacity, there's nothing worse than like, we had this dude, the guy that I got into the fight with the last video that I sent you, right? We get him outside. I threw this guy through I launched this guy. I launched him. Launched this guy, went hands on, wrestled this guy, drug him and my partner out of the door with one arm. And the second that I got this guy out of the store, I'm like, there you go. And he popped up like, dun 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 dun. I'm like, the fuck? So I pull my taser and the guy's just like, you gonna tase me? You gonna tase me? And I'm like, dude, I only have like one more thing to go to, and I don't think we need to go this direction. I was so happy. The cops showed up. Right as me and this guy are having a conversation about tasing him, 4 cops show up. 4 Portland police officers show up.
Because Mike Schmidt's trying to get that re-election.
They come up and jump on this guy and wrestle him, and he's like a dude from Split, the Beast.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh. And they're all like wrestling this guy, and I'm like, all right, now I don't feel so bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, golly, like it doesn't always work. That's why you have to do things that are. They got their taser out, and then he got smacked right. Okay. All right. In your opinion, have you ever seen pepper spray be more effective than a taser? No. The thing about tasers, as PBE will be more than happy to attest to, is that if you don't get a proper connection, then it doesn't have the effect. Guys, I'm going to give you a little taser lesson here. Taser has 2 prongs. The bottom prong comes out at a 12-degree angle. That 12-degree angle spread out over feet, or over inches rather, creates a distance spread of feet. If you do not get a proper split between the first prong and the second prong that is large enough to lock up the body with a neuromuscular inhibitor, which is the 50,000 volts that comes from that taser, you will not get muscle lock, right? The way that a taser works is that it locks up your muscles involuntarily. It locks them up. So if you only get a spread, say from here to here, you only get lockup from here to here. If you only get a spread from here to your belly, you only get lockup from here to your belly. You have to try and get the first prong in the upper shoulder, and the bottom prong, hopefully, is underneath the belt line in the thigh. Why? You want to lock up that ass and that chest. And if you do that and you get a proper connection, the person is going to fall. The problem is that a taser ride is only 5 seconds.
Oh, shit.
You have to.
I didn't know that.
If you use a civilian taser, which is called like the Taser Pulse, it's 30 seconds. But if you use a law enforcement taser, it's 5 seconds. And you can repeatedly stack your 5-second rides. But each time that you do that, if you end up in court, you have to articulate why you gave a second tase. You can't just sit there and continually tase somebody, right?
Makes sense.
Each time that you utilize that trigger, you have to be able to articulate why you did that. There's so much that goes into using a taser that people don't understand. Placement, distance, you have to understand the mathematical equation. And in a split second, most people can't do that. You know, you also have to be able to penetrate the clothing and get into the skin. If you can't do that, you won't get a proper hit. And if you don't get a proper hit, you've just harpooned somebody with a fishing hook, and now generally a cracked out meth head who's already angry. You've just really pissed him off because you've just stuck him with a fucking fishing hook.
I know you want to get off camera, but do you think tasers, to circle back, for women are a decent...
Tasers for women are absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. Because of what I just explained. Most women who buy tasers, they buy what's called a stun gun. And in movies, when somebody uses that, what happens? They're like, and they're like, ah, and they pass out. That's not what happens. In reality, if you've ever played around with a taser, what happens when somebody touches you with a taser? What do? Ah! Right? They're not going to just sit there and let you hold a fucking stun gun on them. They're going to have a reaction. And that reaction is going to be to jump away from you and become even more enraged. And now you have, generally, I'm making a generalization because I know Amanda Lowen, who is a fucking jiu-jitsu black belt that would hand me my ass on a fucking platter, okay? But in most situations now, you have a person who is even more enraged and is going to take that taser and probably is going to do ungodly things with it. What?
But I have a question though. You're talking your non-lethal little trinkets here. The whole point, let me tell you what I gathered, for those is to break contact enough for the next step, whether that's being able to get away or whatever, right? Like regroup and reevaluate. Isn't that the point? Wouldn't that as well be a point if someone's on you and I jam that taser in their leg or something if they're behind me, or I manage to get it wherever I can get it, and just to break that contact? That's kind of where my question comes from, is it's
in theory,
just like you said.
Hang on.
Well, in theory with those, I feel like.
No.
I'm a woman, so
hear me out. If you take this and put this in your hand, does this have to be on to work?
No.
If you take this and put this in your hand, even if you can't stab somebody, can you rake this across somebody? Feel that. Can you rake that across somebody's skin?
Yeah.
Does it have to be on? Does the battery have to be charged? Hang on. I'm telling you, from someone who literally carries a taser every single day, who checks it every morning when I go to work, I have pulled my taser 4 times in 4 years. 4 times in 4 years, twice when I've gone to that taser, it hasn't come on. Why? I don't know. Okay. Like, why do things fail? They fail at the wrong time.
One of my clients last year bought one of my concealed carry bags.
Yeah. She
does not conceal carry. She carries a taser. She pulled her taser out and showed me, which of course I was like, that's actually super fucking cool. Hers is not something she has to switch on or anything like that. However it was laid out, she just has to touch skin and it goes, not skin, but she just has to touch and it goes off. It's not something she has to flip on. It's not something she has to do this with. It's something that she was like, if I just were to hit your side with this right now, it's going off. It's not anything like that.
Until it doesn't. Listen to me.
Until the motherfucker grabs my hand, like,
this is the problem. Wait.
You're a boy who just caught a felony that we talked about.
This is the problem with trying to... This is why it's so frustrating. Y'all are seeing in real time why it's so frustrating. You can tell... I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to be honest. You can tell a woman, if you walk into that bedroom and look to your left, there's a light switch. Right? And a woman's going to go, well... yeah, but if I go into the other bedroom and go through the wall, I can get to the wiring because hear me out. There's wiring behind the wall, right? If I get to the wiring, I can take the wiring and then I can hook up more wires and I can set up another light switch in that side. I'm literally telling you.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
I mean, I'm not carrying a taser.
Am I just like, here's the thing that kills me. My wife acts like I'm just some random, which is crazy, because if I was some random person, she would listen to me. I work in a crackhead-infested environment 16 hours a day. I have taken training all across the country. I spent 6 years in the military. I worked in a county and a state prison. I was a Pennsylvania state constable. And she will argue with me about something as simple as don't use a stun gun.
We need to clarify.
Please clarify.
One thing right now.
Please.
You just don't like to be questioned. Hold on. The playback on this video and anyone watching live, I'm asking you questions and I'm giving you scenarios. So I'm sorry that your fragile little self doesn't like to answer. I'm not over here saying this would be better. I'm challenging what you say. You're saying X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, okay, but isn't A, B, and C similar and parallel because it's doing this? And you're over here getting all, you're arguing with me. I'm just challenging.
That's because I know you, and I know that you argue with me when we're not making a video.
I'm just challenging you, and I'm sorry that you're over here just like, don't question me. Don't question me.
Give me some more coffee.
I think my question was very valid.
Do not use contact stun guns. Don't.
Okay.
Tasers, which are highly more effective, an actual prong deploying taser, highly more effective. Even those are not, in my opinion, good.
Yeah.
Okay? Somebody says she's taming you. Yeah, she does that shit on purpose, man.
What am I doing to you?
She said that she's taming. Somebody says she's taming you. And PBE says your wife got you on that.
I love PBE. Is that who we videoed with you?
Yeah, don't be gassing her up, man. Don't gas her up. Don't gas her up. You gotta deal with this fucking girl.
You're welcome.
Boy, if you know what's crazy? If some crackhead was on the street, like literally like passed out and woke up and was like, hey, I just want to give you some advice. You should carry a carabiner for self. She'd be like, baby, oh my God.
You are so
She'd
full
be like,
of shit.
she'd be like, Damien, have you, I was at the gas station and this homeless guy was like, he told me I should get a carabiner. I drove 30 minutes to REI and I went and bought one. I got you one too.
You are so full of shit. Like,
you listen to everybody but me.
That's why your eyes are brown.
Oh shit!
That's why your eyes are brown.
Oh my
you are
God!
So full of shit.
Shots.
I am not like that, and you know it. You just hate that I challenge you. I think you secretly love it though. Where else do you get this kind of combative behavior?
At work. Every day at work.
Healthily. I have to challenge you.
Oh my God. All right. How is your verbal judo? Do you have any videos of training? Guys, go to my page, go to playlist. Okay? I have 8 playlists with everything from defensive tactics to de-escalation to knife reviews to product reviews. If you look at my videos, I have over 1,000 videos on this page. A lot of it is de-escalation. My verbal judo is top notch. I am an absolute
Beast.
Well, you know what it is. You know, I have a degree in communication, so you know. It's right there over my shoulder.
Hanging up on the
I
wall.
put it underneath that mirror thing because it's a big ass arrow that points right up to my degree. You know? So that's what it is. I'm highly educated. That's why she gets frustrated with me, because she, you know, there's an insecurity in the fact that I'm so highly educated that I have a degree now.
Yeah.
You know? And so she just wants to take little jabs.
Let's talk about who managed to just switch gears in the middle of a pandemic and make all the bread during that time because of the Betty homemaker skills that I have. They came real fucking useful.
If you unscrew this, there's an actual pin right here. I don't know if y'all knew this or not. Yeah. All right.
We both have our strengths, honey.
We have our strengths.
Yours is talking, and mine is making sure to keep you on your toes so you know how to keep talking. Keep arguing with people.
That is true. When people try to argue with me at work, I'm like, dude, I do this. I be putting in reps at the house. I argue every day. We don't argue. We just do this shit for the camera.
Yep, this is the extent of our arguing.
We don't ever argue.
I think it's been years since.
It's been years. We don't argue about anything.
I don't think we've had any arguments since the first year and a half, maybe 2 we've dated.
Get you a woman that you don't argue with unless you're making a video.
Yeah.
All right, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Go out and get something to eat. We're going to go get dinner later on.
Remember, there's 364 other days in a year for you to treat your woman and mother and wife of your kids and your baby mamas with...
Yeah. Make sure you reach out to your side chicks. If you're out there having dinner with your wife, you know what I mean?
She has kids of his.
If you're out there with your wife doing the husband thing, you know, reach out to your side chick. You know what I mean? Like, don't let her be out here today.
Only if she's a mom.
you know your side chick is a single mother. Come on, keep it 100. Keep it a buck.
True.
Reach out to your side chick. Let her know, hey, thinking about you.
Send an extra tip to that mom on OnlyFans.
All right.